quite amazing, actually. Come on. Quite amazing, actually. I don't think it's going to be long, to be honest with you. I don't think our study is going to be long, but it's long enough for us to understand some things. Let somebody else in here right quick. One of the things, everyone, that I'm learning about this walk or this life that I'm choosing to walk on this path is that you're always going to be faced with different challenges, and they're never going away. They're never going to go away. This week, our Torah portion talks about this idea of what they would call ki theitse. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, ki theitse. And basically, what ki theitse is talking about is going out. It means when you go out, okay? And its root of the word has to do with this word called yatsa. This little tav right here, this right here has to do with you, when you go out, okay? And he begins to tell us about all the different things about when they go out to war, before they go out to war, when they would come out of the land of Mitzrayim. And there's different aspects of what happens when you go to war, or different things when you build a house. Marriage was a really big deal that was mentioned in the Torah this week. That was around relationships, about a man, going out and finding a woman in different locations. We discussed earlier this week about theitse having to do with this idea of excrement, meaning that which comes out your body. I didn't put a slide up here, but we'll talk more about that as we go along. So what it is about something that's coming out, okay, when you go out. I thought about some things about what could this mean? Because, of course, we're trying to make the Torah apply to our lives, and we're trying to find the secret things that Yah wants to reveal to us and our children so that we might be able to keep the Torah. And what I've discovered is that Yah is concerned with that which comes out of our mouths. Okay. David said, the king, he said, may the words of my mouth and the thought of my heart be acceptable in your presence, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. I've read this passage literally for, years upon years. And as you know, in Tehillim 19, it's talking about how the heavens talk and how they have words that can't be heard, and how the rakia, which is the dome, shows the handiwork and the glory of Yah. And from day to day, there's words that are being spoken. And from night to night, one is able to obtain knowledge. And so these were some mysteries to me, and something that I quite didn't understand, because you don't hear the voice of the things that are going on. It's hard to find the knowledge in the stars and in the moon. And then he begins to say about how the sun takes its course, and how it comes out at a certain time, and how it makes its circuit around the world, and how it comes out like a bridegroom, really excited and happy. And then all of a sudden, at the end of it, he says, may the words of my mouth and the thought of my heart, meaning the meditation of my heart, which is my mind, be acceptable in your presence. And I thought that meant that everything that he just said. I thought it was the words that he was just talking about. I thought it was about the sun. I thought it was about the day. I thought it was about the heavens. I thought it was about those things. But one of the things that I didn't really pay attention to was the words that he said are being spoken by the heavens. And then he asked the Most High that his words from his mouth and his thought of his mind, which is his heart, okay, the things that he meditates upon may be acceptable in your presence. And so there's a question that we as a people need to ask ourselves. Are we speaking and saying things that are acceptable to Yah? Are we thinking things that are acceptable to Yah? And my own confession, I have to say no. For me, I'll speak this for me. I'll say that there's things that I do say that I think are the right words. When I speak the Hebrew, I do the Torah portion. I, do the Haftarah. I pray. I meditate. I do those things. But often in some of the things that does come out of my mouth is not connected to the Torah. And some of the things that I'm thinking about is not connected to the Torah. And because of that, that seems to be a problem for me. Okay? That's why I'm going to talk about what's happening with me. Okay? And that's something that I think he wants to bring to our attention as his people, is to look at our lives and look at what you're talking about. Look at what you're thinking about and ask yourself the question, is it acceptable to this great and mighty King, my rock and the one who's redeeming me? Would Yah be pleased? Would he be overjoyed by what you and I are talking about and what's coming out of our mouth and what we're thinking? And our Torah also, too, we're going to find some different things that connect to this idea of what we're thinking about and what we're speaking, because they're connected. The question he asked also, too, was who can discern intentional sins? Who can discern? Who can understand those? Right? So why is he asking this question? Because he's looking for wisdom. A wise person's ask questions. I want to know what am I doing that may be intentional? Because my idea of what I thought is intentional versus what's unintentional, meaning that I have no idea what I'm doing versus intentional, has to be solved only by Yah. Yah is the one who's going to determine whether or not something is intentional or unintentional. That's why he asked who can discern. And he recognized that there was something about him that he wanted Yah to cleanse him from, which is the things that are hidden. All of us have something inside of us that is just not acceptable to Yah. I know we've been told in church that he's full of grace and compassion and mercy, and he's never going to hold anything against us. That's true about him being full of grace, mercy, and compassion, but he's also full of judgment. He's also full of righteousness. He's also about doing that which is just. Yah's not going to let anybody go. So we need to ask ourselves the question. And if we deny that we have hidden faults, we're in trouble. Now, I want to preface the rest of this conversation with this idea that I'm not here to judge any of us. I'm not even worthy to judge myself. Not in this sense. Because these are things that are hidden and you don't know what they are. And this is the reason why David wanted to have a closer relationship with the Most High. He wanted to solve some of the problems that he was having, and he understood that the only way that they can be solved is through a relationship with Yah. We read the Torah, everyone. We read the Haftarah. We read the prophets. We read the Psalms. And we may apply some of these things to our lives. But from the estimation of the king of Israel, the one who was close to, the one who was after Yah's own heart, is said that there's some things about him that was hidden. And that's something for you and I to think about. So for the rest of this journey in your life, I want you to take out the time, as I'm doing with myself, and ask yourself these very difficult questions. He had also asked the Most High to keep your servant from presumptuous sins. He wanted Yah to preserve him and guard him. And listen, when it talked about this keep right here, it wasn't this word of shamar. This word right here was to withhold, to restrain me. I'm your servant from these things. We talked about presumptuous sins before. We talked, it's from this family of Zood. That means that they boil over. They go past the boundaries. They go past the places that they should go. When we speak about things, okay, and we speak about things and we do things and we're thinking about things, whether you know it or not, it can be presumptuous. It's something that you think that you're just going to, Yah's going to let it go. We've been taught by people that, you know what, I can sin and then he'll forgive me without, like, we don't have any consequences for our actions. And I'm not trying to make any of us feel bad. I'm just trying to bring some light to the situation. Because it's those things that are hidden from us, it's those things that are intentional that we don't discern, and those things that we do and we go outside of what Yahweh says, that they're going to be the ones that can control you. David did not want anything to control him except for Yah. And that right there is a task. That's asking a lot, especially for a group of people or a human being that has really no clue about anything. We live day to day, we survive, we go to work, we have relationships. You know, we have children, we have parents, we have uncles and aunts and mothers and fathers, and we eat food and we go to sleep and we dress ourselves and we stay warm and we dance and we sing and we do all these different types of things. But the deeper things, the things in which we are supposed to seek the Most High about making sure that nothing has control over you, meaning that something doesn't have a mashal over you, that control right there is a rulership. I don't need anything to rule me except for you, Yah. Sin can rule over you, and it can cause you to act and be a certain way that can be very detrimental to you, not only yourself, but also to those around you, which you have found in your Torah portion this week. Now, we had said that the Torah itself would help him to be blameless, okay, and would be free from great offense if he was taught how to search these things out. If he understood what intentional sins were, and he dialed into that, he locked in on it, he latched onto that, then he said, I would be blameless, I would be complete. You and I can actually obtain completeness and being blameless and free from great offense. That great offense right there is what they had in the Hebrew called pesha. And pesha has to do with this idea of what you will call a rebellion, okay? I don't want to rebel against the Most High. I don't want to transgress against. That means to go over the boundaries that was set by the Most High. For you and I to speak about things and to think about things that are hidden and that are presumptuous, that is what the great offense is. That offense is even greater than the offenses that are done on the outside where you can see it. Someone doing sin on the outside is, you can see it, you can recognize it. It's the things that you and I cannot see that we need to bring light to. And that's what the Torah is for. The Torah is light. The Torah of Yahweh is perfect. This is where you would find your completeness. This is where you're going to find your restoration. This is what you're going to find your turning back to the Most High. That word right there, restoring, is a participle, meaning as presently happening. So the Torah is active and it's living, and this is its job, is to return you. To restore is to return someone. That someone is the soul, which we went over last Shabbat, the nafesh. I want to return this back to Yah through this, the Torah. The Torah is the one who's going to shuv, because that's what return means. That means that I was going in this direction, and now I'm going to turn and go back to the direction I came from. I'm going to get back on the path because all Yahweh's paths are righteousness and justice. That's what we're trying to get back to. And the only way you can do that is with the Torah. That's the only way we can do this. The only way that you and I can deal with that which is hidden, that which is secret, that which is concealed. In your Torah portion, there was a word called sha'atnes. 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 Okay. Akika, what is that? What is that sha'atnes? It sounds cool. What is it? Sha'atnes has to deal with something that's woven. And in our Torah portion this week, he said, you are not to wear clothing woven with two kinds of thread, wool and linen together. So a whole bunch of Hebrew Israelites that get together and start condemning people for wearing clothes that have wool and linen, and the Christians will condemn you because they say that your clothes have two types of threads. And you got two different types of materials. You got cotton mixed in with polyester. You got linen with some cotton. You know what I'm saying? So you got all these different type of materials on you, and you shouldn't have it on you, which is true according to what he's saying. He said you can't, have these two type of materials woven together. Okay, so sha'atnes means to weave something together. That means to combine them. Okay, so to give you just a quick illustration of what I'm talking about, let's say we got this type of color thread. And then he says, you should not take this type of color and woven it in. Two different types of materials. And then, you get happy and you say, I want to put another material in there. Okay. He doesn't want that. The Most High doesn't want this. Yeah, it might have a beautiful design. It might, to you and I, it may look great. But he's saying, I don't want you to do this. It might have saved you some money because you say, well, it's too expensive to put everything to linen, so we need to include a little wool. We got a little extra over here. But the Most High is looking for something that's always consistent. No matter what it is, it's always going to be consistent. Okay? So why did he mention this? Is it just for clothing? What does he mention it for? Well, sha'atnes means a mixing. I don't want you to mix things. Okay. So when someone is weaving something, they have to use an artistic mind. That means that their thoughts are very creative. And we can be creative in our thoughts, just like you can be creative when you create a garment. Just like you're trying to be resourceful with your garment, you could try to be resourceful with your thoughts. Just like you could cut corners on something, you can cut corners in your thoughts. It's a mixing of the way that you think. And when you and I do that, sha'atnes has this idea to degrade the other material. So if you're mixing the wool and the linen together, you're depreciating and degrading the linen by putting the wool, and you're doing likewise to the wool. Yah is saying, I want you to make a separation. So when Dawid said that, may the words of my mouth be in the meditation of my mind, my thoughts be acceptable. Are what we're doing, is it acceptable to Yah? Are we sha'atnes when it comes to our thoughts? Yah's programming his people through the things that he's asking them to do in order so they can start thinking a certain way. I don't want your thoughts mixed. I don't want to be degraded. If I'm telling you something, I don't want you to mix in anything to what I said. You are not to sow two kinds of seed between your rows of vines. If you do, both the harvested crops and the yield from your vines will be forfeited. They will be defiled. You can't have red wine and white wine together. They're both wine, yes, but they're different. They have different instructions. You understand? And we would say here in the time in which we live, there's different technologies that have been built into the white grape versus the red grape. If you mix those two, you're forfeiting it. You're defiling it. He also said in our Torah portion, you are not to plow with an ox and a donkey together. In other parts of our Torah, we find that you're not supposed to mate them together because that's confusion. So why is he telling us here not to plow together with an ox and a donkey? Considering you and I don't have an ox or a donkey. What is he talking about? They're both strong. They're both beasts of burden. So what's the deal? They're both the same. They can accomplish the same thing. The Most High is talking about the plow. What he's talking about is when you put a plow or you put something to be plowed, this one is going to plow it differently than this one is going to. You can injure the donkey by attaching it to the ox, or you can attach the ox to the donkey and hurt the ox. You may not get something. Yes, he's looking for purity across the board. Absolutely, Lucas. So what is the Most High letting us know? What is he telling us? What is he trying to let us know? Well, to plow something has the idea with a thought process. Okay? It means thinking. It means planning. It means devising a plan. That's what plow means. Because when a person goes ready to plow the ground, they number one, they find out what the site is. They understand what are the resources, who we're going to use. They're going to say how long, what's the measurement, to what's the distance, to what point to the next point. It's from here over here, and we got it all the way down here, and then we got to do this. So it's one of devising a plan. And when you devise a plan, you're using your mind. And when you and I are devising plans, what we're doing is we're plowing our minds, which is the soil, which if you plow your mind, you devise your mind in a certain way, when some other seeds are dropped into your brain, which could be some words from someone else. It could be some different ideas that come into your brain. It could be something someone's teaching you. It could be an emotion. It could be all these different things. And your mind now has been plowed and it's opened. You're completely open to receive something now that it's happened. You've turned the soil over. That's the only time you plow, is when you're ready to plant. It's called a preparation. So the Most High is letting us know, I need you to be careful. And they're teaching them through their agriculture, and he's teaching us through the words that he spoke to them. That's how powerful the Torah is. In our Torah portion, he talks about some deceptive and disgusting practices. In Davarim, he says you are to have a correct and fair weight. That means a zedek. That means a righteous weight, and that weight is a stone. And you are to have a correct and fair measure. So when you're measuring something, a container, so that you will prolong your days in the land, Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. For all who are doing such things, all who are dealing dishonestly are detestable to Yahweh our Elohim. They're disgusting to him. They're disgusting. He wants to vomit. He hates the stench of the behavior in which they're doing because they're being dishonest. This is what's in their minds. Yahweh detests a double standard in weights. He doesn't like two weights. He doesn't want a large one, he said in the Torah portion. He doesn't want a small one. He's looking for consistency. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for consistency in everything that they do. He's looking for consistency in our purity. He's looking for consistency in our mind. He's looking for consistency. So the double standard in weights is a problem. Okay? And false scales are not good. Here, when he talks about these scales, right? These scales, the word is directly connected to your ears. And your ears are talking about one's balance. So the Most High is looking for a just and righteous balance. When I connect the ox and the donkey together, there is no balance. Your lines are not going to be straight. because you're trying to take a shortcut to about what I said. It's imperative that you and I follow what he has said and adopt his ways of balance and justice and fairness and righteousness. It has to do with your ears. If it's false scales, it has to do with your ears. Are you being balanced in your judgment? Are you, when you use your eyes, are you have accurate measurement? Well, if you have a screwed up mind, you're not going to be able to make those decisions, and you're not going to be just. And these are the things that David wanted to tell the children of Israel. By his Psalms to the Most High, he was sharing his heart, which is his mind, and letting the Most High know where he was deficient and what he understood. And that's what he's trying to get you and I to understand. Yah wants to let us know what these deficiencies are so you and I can turn the deficiencies into efficiencies, so that we can grow and we can be pleasing to Yah. Oh, bless his name today. A woman is not to wear men's clothing, and a man is not to put on woman's clothing. For whoever does these things are detestable. They are disgusting to Yahweh. There goes your transgender right there. There goes that transgender agenda right there. They are detestable to Yah. They're disgusting. He abhors it. But what was interesting about this is that when I looked it up in the Hebrew, and I left it in English on purpose, okay, because the English will tell you things, and it just seems across the board. It's just talking about clothing. No, it's not. It's not just talking about clothing. This idea of clothing is not even mentioned in the Hebrew. It talks about anything that pertains to a man. Yah is making, again, everyone, a distinction between a man and a woman. If you recognize this week, the Most High says, when a man, if a man, when a man, if a man, he never mentions not one thing to a woman. Never. He never mentions anything. If a woman does this, or if a woman does this, or if a woman does this, or if a woman goes and takes a man and lay with him, if a woman does, never says that. You got to ask yourself, why? Why is the Most High not addressing women? He is going to address the woman, but he addresses her in a certain way. Last week, I told you how beautiful it is to be a woman. You're connected to the Torah. Just who you are is supposed to be Zedekiah. It's supposed to be righteousness, Kokmah, wisdom. You understand? I don't want you to get it twisted. I don't want you to get sha'atnes on this. I want you to understand what I'm about to tell you. If a man is doing something that he's acting like a woman, Yah says that is disgusting to me. If he has any femininity in him, Yah says that's disgusting to me. He's even told us that a man who has had his testicles cut or bruised in his private areas are not to come into the assembly of Yah, because he's not recognized as a man. When he talks about this woman, he's saying, don't you put on anything or put a necklace, a bracelet. He ain't talking about clothes. That can be included. But also what he's also talking about is the attitude that a woman has. There's so many women out here, okay, that have taken on the masculinity of a man and taken on the energy of a man. And there's a lot of men who have taken on femininity. It's across the board. Yah talks about women's rights all through the Torah this week. They have rights. They should be treated with fairness. They should, because they go through certain things that he says, no, you got to honor her. There's more respect is shown to her that should be shown by a man. There's lines that should never be crossed on a woman. But likewise, on the flip side, to have balance and this to be scaled, to be just, You and I need to understand the difference and the distinction between a man and a woman. Because if we don't, then what we're doing and how we're behaving and how we're thinking is disgusting to Yah. And that can actually be hidden. That can be a hidden fault because you may not even recognize that you're acting feminine or you're acting masculine and you're a woman. Everybody should learn how to stay in their place and be and play the role that Yah called you to be and live in the manner that he told you to live. Because if you're not, you're dealing with selfish ambition. This is the biggest part of the Torah portion this week. That it's about selfishness. It's about a person, how they think. It's all about them. And it's not about anybody else. That's all this Torah portion is about. Just about. It's the focus on what your wants are and what your needs are and your desires above others. You don't care how it affects them. You don't care, including Yahweh's laws and statutes and commandments. Well, I'm not part of the Old Testament. Well, the Most High's laws don't change. I wasn't there. I'm not doing that. You got to understand. I'm going to show you several examples to let you know that it is about selfish ambition. And what goes along with selfish ambition, everyone, one of the consequences about selfish ambition is that it happens by someone doing something or thinking something or speaking something and letting it come out of their mouth that tells you that they're selfish. This is a hidden fault. This is hidden. This is not revealed. This is hidden. And Yah's putting light on it, and he's telling us what it is. But once we go past this part and we're presumptuous, like David said with these sins, what's going to happen with this selfish ambition is you're going to be bound to it. This selfish ambition will bind you. It will tie you up, and it will take you hostage. And you will then become a slave, and then it will become your master. And then you will either die by it, or you're going to live in a very oppressed way. Because whoever you oppress, you're going to be oppressed. That's what Yah says. And this is the reason why he's telling us not to do these things, because you're going to tie yourself to something and you're going to end up trying to tie somebody else up. The first example we have is about the slave girl. I didn't put any of the scriptures here. I didn't tell you Davarim chapter number 21, verse number 10. I didn't do that. You read your Torah portion, you know exactly where to find it. If you don't know where it's at, you're going to go back and read your Torah portion. And you're going to go back and read it so you can see, well, is David telling me the truth? Is Akika lying to me, or is he telling me the truth? Is he just trying to push me in a certain way, or does he really truly care about all of us? Well, the fact is this is something Yah is trying to tell all of us. He said, in the event that you lose interest in her, listen to this person. You are to let her go wherever she wishes. You're supposed to send her away, shalak. You must not sell her for money or treat her like a slave, because you humiliated her, meaning that you have taken her when you went to war, you brought her home, you cut all her hair off, you brought her to nothing, and you humiliated her. You humbled this girl. So what I feel about the slave girl, the one who's a captive, that has been taken captive, you took her because what you took her captive, but what did I want you to do? I wanted you to release her. And the way that you released her was through marriage. You can't go in a marriage and bind somebody up and oppress them in the marriage because you don't want to follow the rules of a husband. So if you don't like her, now you want to keep her, and now you want to hold on to her. That's what you want to do. You want to treat her like a slave after you let her go. I don't want you, but now you're going to treat her like a slave. You go take her from one place to another, and she's going to experience some freedom, and you humbled her. You took away her body. You took away her rights. You took her hair off. You brought her to nothing, and you totally humiliated her. And now, after you've done this, you say, I don't want you. God's not with that. He's not with binding someone after you set them free. It's about setting people free. Yah wants to set people free. But if you and I are not free, you and I can't set other people free. We have to release people. He gives you the provision if you're not happy. Set her free. Don't try to hold on to her soul and don't mistreat her. In the Hebrew, it talks about binding her up. That's selfish. Here's another idea of selfishness, the idea when we found about the two wives. When it comes time for him talking about this man as he had two wives to pass his inheritance on to his sons, he may not give the inheritance due to the firstborn of the loved wife in place of the son of the unloved one, who is in fact the firstborn. Why would a man want to do this? Because he's selfish. He only cares about how he feels. And this has nothing to do with Yah's laws. Yah doesn't care about how you and I feel. He doesn't care about our emotions, whether we like it or not. The one who had to take and give to his wives, I don't care if you hate her, meaning you want to put distance. She might have did something that really, you might have a legitimate reason for not liking her. Maybe you had to marry her because you raped her. And now you stuck with her for the rest of your life. Maybe this is the woman that you married that you said something bad about and try to say that she wasn't a virgin, and she was, and you're stuck with her. So now you hate her. This is what happens. You understand? And all because you get bound to something doesn't mean, right, that automatically you're going to get set free from it. Doesn't mean as in some of these instances in here, these people are getting bound and they can't get out. Even though that may be the case, you're not going to take the right from the firstborn. You don't have any power to do that, according to the judgment of Yah. We found that in our Torah portion about this selfish ambition of the son. When a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey Shema, Shemoah, his father and mother say what they say, even after they discipline him, okay, after the discipline, him, and he still refuses to pay attention to them. Well, what are you talking about? We went over there this week. We talked about this in particular son who he's just stagnant. There's no life in him. He doesn't care. He's selfish. That's why he's a moreh. That's why he's a rebel. He's stubborn. Why? Because he refuses to change. This ain't just about this son. It could be about a daughter. It could be about you. It could be about me. Are we not the sons and the daughters of the Most High Yah? Are we refusing to listen to what he has to say because we're that selfish, because we're so focused on what we want and we're not concerned about others that Most High is truly concerned with? He talked about a criminal. When someone has committed a capital crime and is put to death, then hung on a tree, his body is not to remain all night on the tree, but you must bury him in the same day, because a person who has been hanged has been cursed by Elohim. The question is why did I put a criminal as selfish ambition? Because a criminal is only concerned about what he's going to get. That's why he robs. That's why he steals, is all for personal gain. That's why people do what they do. And as a result of this idea of him being a criminal, of stealing and lying and cheating and murder and so forth, and sabotaging and ambushing people, whatever his crime may have been that was worthy of death, we find that the Most High says he's cursed. Your selfish ambition can cause you to commit crimes that make you worthy of death. What's worthy of death? Several things. We'll get into it. You found out about your brother. You found out that your brother's ox, you are not to watch your brother's ox or sheep straying and behave as if you hadn't seen it. You must bring it to your brother. That's talking about concealing something. You saw something, you're supposed to take responsibility for it because you saw it, and you refuse to help because you're that selfish. You're that selfish. You're that, and it's deceptive. Where's the deception in this, Akika? The deception is because you saw it and you act as if you didn't. You act as if you didn't see the facts. You act, when you tell somebody something happening, you don't give all the information in order to protect yourself. So you won't be put in a bad light, or for your own advantage, to your own gain. You will not disclose certain facts and information about something. If you find anybody that is going to withhold information, they're a selfish person and they have selfish ambitions. If you lie to your mate and you're not telling them something, you're being treacherous, like the Most High said in the book of Malachi, that men are treacherous. They're treating their wife treacherously, meaning they're hiding stuff. They have other intentions. You're selfish. If you're a woman, see, you're going to hear me talk about men and women. If you're a woman that's hiding stuff from your husband, like your bank account or what you're doing, or any other thing that you think he should know about, and you're just trying to hide it. You know how many people that I dealt with in the real estate industry, in the banking industry, that when I used to get them loans, that they used to come and I do a credit report on them, and I run their credit, and I said, well, okay, I need your husband's credit, because in order for you to get this loan, they'll give me the husband's credit and I'll run the credit. And you know what the woman would tell me? And I'm not kidding you. At least 75 to 80% of the women were hiding and had extra credit cards and extra debt, thousands and thousands of dollars, that they didn't want me to tell their husband. And I said, I can't do that. There's never been a man that has ever came into my office that said, hide this from my wife. Never. The women are the ones who are hiding it. And for what reason? Maybe fear. A lot of those women were scared of their husbands. And maybe it's the husband's fault. Maybe he treated them wrong. Maybe he had them under fear. Maybe he was an oppressor. Maybe he didn't give them some liberty. Maybe it could be all kinds of things. So I don't want to just put it out there like the women are the crooks only. Maybe it's the man. But it goes back to this idea of deception that ruins us as a people. And it starts with us as individuals. You cannot live your life with hiding things and not disclosing information. It's deceptive. So in this instance, you have a brother here that saw a need and he refused to take action. It was very simple. He could have simply just said, hey, let me go over there and help. But no, he's selfish. So is that really a brother? Are you really being a brother to somebody when you're selfish? And guess what, everyone? I had to ask myself these questions. Before I taught this lesson, I asked the Most High, is there anything in me that's selfish? Where's my selfish ambition? What am I doing, Yah? Because I have a high opinion of myself sometimes. I think I'm doing great. I got a lot of good stuff going on. I don't lie, I don't steal, I don't cheat, I don't do any of these things. I don't do it. But is there something that's hidden that I don't know about? See, so we get to a point where we don't really want to be honest with ourselves. The only one who can ask you these hard questions is you. Yah has a different scale on his judgment for us. And you and I want to know what that is. I name myself Akika. My real name is Dawid. That's my real name. My real name is Dawid. But I go by Akika. I didn't want anybody to call me Dawid. I want them to call me Akika. Because I understand what it means, and I'm going to tell you what it means today. Akika is consistent of 4 letters. The Aleph, the Ket, the Yod, and the Kaf, the final Kaf. It's final because it's on the end of the word. They all mean something. What do we got? We have the strength of the Aleph. You have a wall, which means of protection. You have the hand, which in Hebrew talks about my. I'm taking possession. And then the kaf right here is the palm of a hand, which is you or your. That means now you have possession. See, you can have Aki, which is my brother. You have possession. He's my brother, family. Then you have Akika. Now, your brother. Now you've taken possession of me. You've taken hold of me. You're trying to protect me. You're trying to be a strong wall of defense against that which someone comes to attack or to harm you. And in this case, for me, I'm being a strong wall of protection because I'm set in place to protect you from that which is coming against you, which are the ways of the heathen. I'm going to help get rid of the enemy when he come against you. I'm supposed to help keep you sharp. I'm supposed to be on the road looking for when something is out of sorts. I'm supposed to see if I see something straying, I'm your brother, and I'm supposed to go and get it and bring it back. I'm supposed to hold on to it for you. The same word for sister has the same word in akoth. Same thing. Sisters are supposed to protect sisters. Sisters are supposed to protect sisters. And they can try to protect their brother, like you saw in the Torah portion, their husband. And I forgot to put a slide in, but we'll talk about it. About her getting her hand cut off. That's not true. The Hebrew doesn't say she get her hand cut off. It says that because she grabbed the man by his private parts, she's supposed to get the palm of her hand cut off. Just the palm. That's all. They don't cut her hand off. They cut the palm of her hand. So every time she thinks about grabbing something, she's going to look at her hand and she's going to remember that I went against what Yah said. So what she loses is literally the function of the palm of her hand, in a sense. They don't break her bones. They don't do any of that. They just cut the palm of her hand off. So every time she sees it, she looks at him like, I remember this happened. I'll never grab a man again by his private area, because the Most High said, don't ever touch that. That's how precious that is. Don't let you ever put your hand on that. You could grab a man and try to fight him and all that kind of stuff to help your husband, but don't you ever put your hand on his private area. Never. See? So Yah again is making a distinction between a man and a woman and saying this is very important. That's how important a man is. I'll cut the palm of your hand off if you go past the place where you're supposed to. Okay. But your brother is someone who's supposed to have your back. That's a brother. He's a strong wall of protection and he belongs to you. There's some selfish ambition in people who are greedy. When you are walking along and you happen to see a bird's nest in a tree or on the ground with chicks or eggs, and the mother bird is sitting on the chicks or the eggs, you are not to take the mother with the chicks. You must let the mother go. You must send her away. But you may not take the chicks but you may take the chicks for yourself, so that things will go well with you and you will prolong your life. Because if you don't let the mother go and you take the mother, I'm going to take your life. Your life is not going to be long. So now, God's trying to teach his people something about life. And he's teaching his people about order. And he's teaching his people about being what you will call merciful. I want you to be merciful. You don't have to be greedy. When you're merciful, you don't have to be greedy. It don't always have to be about everything that you can get when you can get it. Yah will provide. But in your getting, be merciful. So what? Life can continue. That's the reason why this was mentioned. because Yah is talking about the greedy versus the merciful, because our master is merciful, because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's always about him. Selfish ambitions. There's a husband that was mentioned. When a man marries a woman, has sexual relations with her, then have coming to dislike her, he brings false charges against her, defames her character, saying, I've married this woman, but when I had intercourse with her, I did not find evidence that she was a virgin. Then the girl's father and mother are to take the evidence of the girl's virginity to the leaders of the town at the gate. If you notice in your Torah portion, it talked about the leaders at the gate. And all of them were men. Every last one of them were men. Okay? Yes, Lucas.
What would that evidence be?
That evidence is going to be a cloth with blood on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's the deal. So integrity goes a long way. So it also tells us, which I didn't have a slide for it, it says if they weren't able to find it, I think I do have a slide for it, but after she had intercourse, she's supposed to take the fabric or whatever it was, the sheet or whatever, a piece of it or whatnot, or the whole thing, and bring it as evidence, because that would determine whether or not she would be able to live or die at this moment. So we see the idea of responsibility on the parents' part, that they had to be able to secure that, kind of like you would, with some money or with your deed of trust. So the virginity was a big deal, and so if this man is making his accusation, is a very strong charge. And as a result of these things, and that's because he doesn't like her for whatever reason, but again, it's a man who's selfish. He's only made, so everything is coming out of his mouth. Remember, the Torah portion is kithetze. When you go out, well, this is something that's coming out. This is a yatsa. This is coming out of his mouth. You understand? This is coming out of him. So there's things that are going to be done through action. There are going to be things that are going to be spoken. In this case, he says this publicly. So he shames the daughter of Israel. He defames her character. And as a result of that, you're going to have to bring this to trial. Now, but if the charge is substantiated, well, I didn't finish telling you about the husband. If the husband had found that he said this and it wasn't true, he lied, then guess what's going to happen to him? He's going to be punished, and he is by the elders, by the leaders, and he's going to have to pay a fine of 100 shekels of silver. 100. And he is not able to divorce her for the remaining part of his life. He'll never be able to get rid of her. You understand? So because of his selfish ambition and because of the thought that was in his mind that if I just say this, then that will get me off, the Most High says, now you're bound. Now because of this, you bound yourself to her for the rest of your life. And now you're going to have to look at the woman that you told to everybody that she was not a virgin, you were found out to be a liar. So now you're going to pay a fine, you're going to get punished, and you'll never be able to leave her. You're bound now. So there are some things that a person would say that would bind them to a life, now he's stuck with her. So maybe she's the wife that he hates. And that's why he has another wife. So now you can see, now he wants to, give that which was supposed to be given to her from the firstborn to the one that he loves now. And Yah says, no, I got something for you. You're not going to be able to do that. Maybe this woman is the woman that, for whatever reason, he just, had a change of mind. It's not always about the woman, everybody. It's not always about her doing something wrong. It's him. In this case, Yah's balanced with it. He's letting us know this man. Now, here we talked earlier about a son with his selfish ambition, but here's a daughter who has selfish ambition. But if the charge is substantiated, meaning they have that the evidence for the girl's virginity could not be found, there's a problem. Now, the question before we go any further in reading this, if the evidence could not be found, that means that the parents knew that she wasn't a virgin. Because it's their responsibility to collect that item and keep it as to safeguard her name and her reputation. That's what was going on in this culture. For then they are to lead the girl because they couldn't find it. Then they are to lead the girl. They couldn't find it. And they're to lead the girl to the door of her father's house, not to the gate. She's going to the door of her father's house, and the men of that town will stone her to death. Not the women. Because she has committed in Israel the disgraceful act of being a prostitute while still living in her father's house. And in this way, you will put an end to such wickedness among you. this idea of it being disgraceful has to do with something called being foolish, which we talked about the son who is a fool, who doesn't want to listen. So you can have a foolish son and you can have a foolish daughter. The Most High said, what this person has done, what this daughter has done is foolish. And because you're a fool, right, meaning that you cut your mind off to listening to the instructions to prevent you from dying, okay, because you're going to die now. I'm going to have you stoned to death in front of your father's house. And as a punishment because he didn't have the information, or he tried to act like it was not, no one's going to find out. Because remember, this is secret again. This is something that's concealed. So anything that's concealed is going to be brought out. We need to find evidence for it. And so we see that the Most High is concerned with, do you have evidence for what you said? You got to bring evidence for the virginity. You got to bring evidence. You understand? The parents brought the son. There are two witnesses. You got to bring evidence. You got to bring it, because that's the only way the judgment will ever be wrought out with righteousness. So evidence needs to be found. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lead her to the door of her father's house and you're going to stone her to death. A lot of people don't like that idea, right? But what she's doing is foolish, because the Most High calls it prostitution. And in your Torah portion, he said, there shall never be a prostitute in Israel. I never want a prostitute in Israel. And he didn't just say women. He said both men and women. There should never be a male prostitute or a female prostitute. It's disgusting to the Most High. It's detestable to the Most High. And what he's trying to do is to remove it out from you. So if he's talking about getting this wickedness, what he's talking about is extraction. I need an extraction of this. Just like you would have a bowel movement, right? We're going to take the excrement. I need it to come out. Just like he told you when you go out to war. And I'm asking you, when you got to go to the bathroom, you need to go outside the camp and go relieve yourself and then cover it. Because if you don't, I'm leaving the camp and then you're going to lose your war. Yah's not interested in filth. So he's letting us know what kind of Elohim he is. He's not from earth. He's not human. So the stuff that you and I would like to pass on to him, he's not passing. So any of these women out here that are in Israel, if you didn't know, you didn't know. But it doesn't mean that you're not guilty. See? So all of us are guilty. But once we find out that we're guilty, we have to make the changes and the adjustment. And we have to tell the Most High that you're sorry. You can't ignore it like it didn't happen. There's selfish ambition with adultery. When a man is found sleeping with a woman who has a husband, both of them must die. The man who went to bed with her, with the woman, and the woman too, both of them. In this way, you'll put an end to such wickedness, because that's the goal. I'm purging Israel of these type of people because they're selfish. The act of adultery is one of the most selfish acts that anyone can do, because they're only concerned about their pleasure, and they're only concerned about their emotion. They're only concerned about how they feel. They're not concerned about their children. They're not concerned about their wife. They're not concerned about their family. They're not concerned about their job. They're not concerned about their finances. They're not concerned. And when you have a person like that in your community, you have to get rid of them. So don't be mad at Yah when he says that an adulterer is going to be put to death. If a girl who is a virgin is engaged to a man, because being engaged, she's accounted for. It's like adultery. And another man comes upon her in the town and has sexual relations with her. You are to bring them both out of the gate of the city and stone them to death. Now, they're not going to get inside the building. They're not going to be in front of the house. We're going to take them to the gate now where all the elders are, and you're going to stone them to death. The girl, because she didn't cry out for help there in the city, and the man, because he humiliated his neighbor's wife. In this way, you will put in and expel such wickedness among you. So adultery is wickedness. Being a prostitute is wickedness. When anything that's done out of the confines of which Yah has prescribed, it's wickedness. Selfish ambition is what we're talking about. In your Torah portion, you found about a rapist. Rape is in your Torah portion. When a man comes upon a girl who is a virgin, who is not engaged, And he grabs her and has sexual relations with her and intercourse with her, and meaning he apprehends her and they're caught in the act. I don't like that translation, they're caught in the act, as if they just got caught doing it. No, in the Hebrew it talks, it was been brought out. Because what the girl has to do now is she has to go and tell her father what has happened. If she doesn't tell her father what has happened, or her father or mother what's happened, she's now going to have to be faced with the charges of prostitution later on. And if her parents knew about it, they try to hide it, because if your daughter got raped, that's not something everybody wants to talk about. So what some people would choose is to opt to hide it. And when they hid it, then that's when you got the situation where they can't find the virginity cloth, because it didn't happen in the proper order. It happened outside in the field. It happened in the city. So where's the cloth? There is no cloth. See? So if she doesn't say anything, she's dead. If she says something, they hide it, and they find out later on she's dead. Yah is going to make sure that judgment is going to be found out. But here, this is about a rapist. Okay? Anybody that puts their hands on a woman, look at the woman's rights. Look what happens to this virgin girl who's being apprehended and taken. Do you understand the reason why the Most High has to make a distinction between a man and a woman? So the line should never be crossed. The sha'atnes should not be happening right here. Because once we cross those lines, we're never going to be able to go back. When a man is wearing that which appertains to a woman, that we're never going to be able to go back. They've crossed the line. So here, this rapist, okay, is a man. He's a rapist. It ain't two little innocent kids. It's a grown man. It took a young girl, raped her, and she wasn't exposed to anybody, betrothed. You know, she wasn't betrothed to anybody. He had intercourse with her. He must give her father 1.25 pounds of silver. He has to get 50 shekels. Well, what about the guy that said something was bad about the woman? He had to stay married to her and pay 100 shekels. And all he just said that she wasn't a virgin. Here's a guy that did have sexual intercourse. And what does he have to pay? He has to pay half to the father, and she will become his wife, because he has humiliated her. He's humbled her. He may not divorce her as long as he lives. That's Yah's judgment. You see? So did it say that because he raped her that he gets put to death? No. You didn't die for rape. You didn't die for rape. I know it doesn't sound nice, but sexual intercourse without someone's permission is rape. By definition. And in some states, by you even touching a woman and she didn't want to be touched, it's rape. It's rape. You understand? So here, right, for the intent of having sexual intercourse in some states is rape, depending on what state you're in. So this rapist doesn't have to die, but he does have to pay. And as a result of his selfishness, because he's a selfish person too, he has lack self-control, look what happens to him. He has to pay a fine, and he has to marry her, and he can never divorce her. He will never have the ability to send her away. So now, because of this rape, a lot of people say, well, he got off. He got the woman. No, he had to pay, and he's bound. He bound himself to her for the rest of his life. And maybe he's the one who hates his wife. Selfish ambitions. Yah tells us about families. He tells us about the Ammoni and the Moabi, right, which are Lot's sons. He says these Noami and no Moabi may enter the assembly of Yahweh. That means to be gathered and called to appear before the Most High, nor may any of the descendants down to the 10th generation enter the Hakwal of Yahweh, meaning the assembly, the calling of Yah's people together, because they did not supply you with food and water when you were on the road after coming out, after leaving at the Yatzah, after Yah squeezed you out of Mitzrayim, and because they hired Balaam the son of Beor from Petor in Aram, the Hanavarim, to put a curse on you. They were selfish. And as a result of their selfishness, Yah says they can never come in until down to the 10th generation. And after they get there, I want to be clear that you shall never seek their peace. But Yahweh your Elohim would not listen to Balaam. Balaam was selfish. He wanted to go and make money off of cursing Israel. Selfish ambition. And he ended up ultimately getting killed. Why? Because he was selfish. Rather, Yahweh Elohim turned the curse into a blessing for you because Yahweh Elohim loved you. So you are to never seek their peace. Who? The Ammoni, the Ammoni, and the Moavi, which are your relatives through Lot, Abraham's children. Abraham's nephew's children, or their well-being as long as you live. The Most High also mentions, I don't have a slide in here, he talks about there's no mamzer. There's not even a person who's born out of incest supposed to come in, which goes back to the Ammoni and the Moavi. They're not supposed to come in. But he did tell us about Esau, our brother. He says, you're not supposed to abhor him. He's your brother. He also mentions the Mitzrayim. You're not supposed to abhor someone from Mitzrayim, even though you were in slavery to them because you were a stranger in their land. Yah says you can't abhor them. You found in your Torah portion about a kidnapper, a thief. They're selfish. If a man kidnaps any of his brothers, fellow members of the community, and makes him a slave by binding him, see where I told you, the binding comes into the selfish ambition and sells him, that kidnapper must die. Must die in the way that you will put an end. In that way, you will put an end to such wickedness among you. That among you has to do with the singular, you. You need to start understanding that these types of behaviors are not conducive for the community. You and I need to understand that if we're going to be with Yahweh, we're going to have to live a certain way, and we have to start thinking a certain way. And you don't need to be in the land to start thinking this way. He also mentions in the Torah portion about Merayim, right? She has Zazarat. He told you to remember Zazarat. Why I want you to mention Zazarat? Because I want you to remember Merayim. I want you to remember Miriam. Remember what Yahweh your Elohim did to Miriam. What did he do to Miriam on the road after you came out, after you were extracted, after you yatsa, after you were excreted from Mizraim, after I pushed you out because you didn't want to come out? What happened there? Something came out of her mouth. What came out of her mouth? Well, if you don't remember, she spoke against Moses. She spoke against his authority. She spoke against the words in which he was speaking because she didn't, in her mind, didn't think that the Most High is using him and that he's the leader. So it's because what came out of her mouth, which is slander. That's the reason why she got put outside the camp. And Yah is saying, remember her. Remember what I'll do. I'll put you out. I'll put you out of your land. I'll put you out. I excrete you out. I'll push you out. Because I have to remove you from the midst of the land. And that's what Yah has done. The Torah portion talks about the selfish ambitions of an employer. This is real life. This is real time, people. If you are not to exploit a hired worker who is poor and needy, whether one of your brothers or a foreigner living in your land in town, you are to pay him his wages the day he earns them. You are to pay him his wages the day he earns them, before the sunset, for he is poor and looks forward to being paid. Otherwise, he will cry out against you to Yahweh, and it will be your sin. The people are not paying people that are poor their wages on the day that they earn them. In the society that we live, we have pay structures that have been put in place. 2 weeks, every other week, bi-weekly, once a month salary, depends on what kind of job you have. So individuals here are not really keeping Yah's laws. And this is, you should know, but I want to give you a warning to let you know how Yah sees it. Even though it's going down right now, we think it's normal and it's an accepted practice in the world. The Most High sees it differently because selfish ambitions bring judgment. And found in the book of Malachi, chapter number 3, verse number 5, it says, then I will approach you for judgment and will be quick to witness against those who take advantage of the wage earners, widows and orphans, against those who rob the foreigner of his rights and don't fear me, says Yahweh Zavaoth. He's in battle formation. I'm coming and I'm going to draw near to you in order to judge you. These are some of the reasons why he's coming to judge the world. You would never think it had to do with the paycheck, but it does. Every aspect of our life Yah has said, I have laws that surround the way that you treat each other. And the way that the poor and the needy are being treated in the world today demands Yah to bring judgment. Because people are stealing people's wages. They're underpaying them. They're taking too much taxes out. They're not giving them their bonuses. I've got robbed for $60,000, $70,000 at one point when I worked for a company. They didn't want to give me my commissions because they said I just made too much. And they're going to have to pay for that. You understand? So Yah says, I'm bringing judgment. And these social classes that he mentions, the widows and the orphans, are mentioned through your Torah portion, along with the stranger. He talks about how you and I should never mistreat them. If you do mistreat them, something's going to happen to you. Your selfish ambition will drive you to being killed. It says you are not to abuse a widow or an orphan. If you do, because you have a choice, if you do abuse them in any way, and they cry to me, I will certainly heed their cry. My anger will burn, and I will kill you with the sword. Your own wives will be widows, and your own children will be fatherless. That's in Yah's judgment. Exodus chapter number 22, verse number 21 through 22. Found in your Mishpatim. You see? So Yah's laws hasn't changed. So you and I want to be selfish? Understand. Judgment is coming. And it's coming for individuals who are doing these things. Oddly enough, I did find that there's some selfish ambition that was found in the judges and the leadership in our Torah portion. Leaders can actually, and judges can actually have some selfish ambition as well. Earlier in some of our Torah portions talked about them, accepting bribes and whatnot. But in this Torah portion, it talks about how when people have a dispute and seek resolution in court, and the judges render a decision in favor of the righteous one and condemning the wicked one, then if the wicked one deserves to be flogged, the judge is to have him lie down and he shall be flogged in his presence. That's not the end of this. That's just to kind of give us the background of what he's talking about. The righteous one and the wicked, right? So when two people have a dispute, there's always going to be someone who is righteous and someone who is wicked. Wickedness just simply means not somebody who's walking around with a red cape on with horns and fangs and claws. Someone who's wicked has gone off of the path. They have gone crooked. A righteous person is one who's been straight about what they're talking about. They have straight thinking, they have straight words. Their words are straight, their mind is straight, their actions are straight. They're very upright. They're always going to do what's right even when no one's looking. The wicked person is the one who's either erred and who made a mistake, okay, or it could have been intentional. Either or. It could be a mistake or it can be intentional. Even though you did it on accident, is still wickedness. You understand? So it has to be put back into check, right? So any situation, there's always, in any situation, there's always a plaintiff, there's always a defendant. In here, in this country, it doesn't mean that the defendant is wrong. It doesn't mean the plaintiff is wrong. You got to figure that out. Based on what? Based on the evidence. Okay? So evidences have to be brought, and then based on the evidence, we'll determine who's righteous and the one who's wicked. Just like the virgin. Well, let's find out. Where's the evidence? Let's find it out. Okay? So the Most High is concerned with righteousness, and he's concerned with having wickedness removed or dealt with. Okay, depending on how severe that wickedness is. The number of strokes is to be proportionate to his offense, meaning that this person's about to get the wicked person, when they find out that he's the guilty party, he's actually going to get whooped. He's going to get beat. Okay, with maximum number of 4 is 40. Okay, so he's going to get beat. A lot of us don't understand that grown men were having to lay down, as you just saw. He's to have him lay down in the presence of the judge, and he's supposed to receive a number of strokes to be proportionate, measured out to his offense. So every offense didn't require 40 strokes. Some might have been 5, 10, depending on what they had, okay? But we understand that grown men were getting whooped. Grown women were getting whooped. It wasn't only children getting whooped. Everybody was getting whooped who were wicked. He is not to exceed this. He is not. The judge is not to exceed this. If he goes past 40 and he goes over the limit and he beats him more than this, your brother will be humiliated before your eyes. And so we see that the Most High is concerned with those who are being humbled. He doesn't even want the person who's been done wrong or the person who had to be disciplined not to go past a point where they're being humiliated. You understand? There's a cost. When a man took the captive and he humbled her and humiliated her, her cost of her freedom. If you don't want her, let her go free. You benefited off of her. You know, somebody's working for you, pay them. Don't send them away. Don't take that which they are looking forward to. Stop being selfish. Brother-in-law situation. I think this is the final one. The brother-in-law is the one, if the man, in context, this has to do with a brother-in-law who his brother was married to a woman. These two brothers were living together, and he married a woman, and then the brother died. Right? So the brother-in-law, he had what they would call an obligation or responsibility. He had a duty that he had to fulfill. But the Most High leaves it open and says, I'll give you the option to choose whether or not you want to do that duty or not. It's up to you. I want to find out whether or not you're selfish or not. So if the man does not wish to marry his brother's widow, right, which he was supposed to, if he doesn't wish to marry his brother's widow, then his brother's widow is to go up to the gate, to the leaders again, and say, my brother-in-law refuses to raise up for his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of the husband's brother for me. Meaning that his job was to marry this woman, impregnate her, have a son, and give that son the name of her belated husband. Her deceased husband is supposed to give his name, so his name will never be erased out of Israel. And once that happens, then the brother-in-law is like, well, wait a minute. What if I didn't want to give that? I'm giving the firstborn right to my brother. I mean, I'm taking on his name. So that's literally like his son. I'm just bearing a son for him. He gets still all of the inheritance of everything that's supposed to go to my firstborn son. You see? So if we notice, everything the Most High is telling us about is that there's some instances where I'm going to give you some latitude so you can make a decision. You know, I'm going to allow you to, you know, do what you do. Like, if you want to get rid of the slave girl, that's up to you. You know, if you don't want to marry this woman, your brother's wife, that's up to you. But there's something that's going to happen with that. Okay. So now we might say, well, he just got away free. No, he didn't. He bound himself to something too. What he's bound himself to was, I didn't put it up here. Forgive me, I didn't have it in here. It says that from now on, he's going to be what she's supposed to do is take off his sandal in front of the leaders, and she's supposed to spit in his face and say some words to him about, you weren't willing to raise up a seed for your brother. And he'll be known as the person who they took his shoe off. And everybody knows that he's kind of disgraceful what he did. He didn't want to build up his brother's name. And that's a shameful thing, you know, to be in a community when you didn't want to do that because you're that selfish. So everybody knows at that point you're selfish. So when it came to him marrying someone else, and they knew, oh, that's the guy who had his sandal taken off, they'd be like, oh, okay. Do you want to deal with him? No. You know, so these are the things that were going on in Israel. These are the things that were going on in Israel. These are the attitudes that were going on in Israel. Our Torah portion had to do with, and of course, the Amalek is mentioned about how they attacked Israel. And the Most High said, once you get settled in, after you're done and you get all settled in, I want you to go and I want you to blot their name off the face of this earth because of the way that they treated you. Okay, so the Most High holds grudges against certain people that he's just not going to let go. Okay, so we find these things out. We learned today that the Most High is really concerned about how you and I see things and how we respond. And he's really concerned about the things that are coming out of our mouth. He's really concerned about those things that you're unaware of, the secrets, the hidden faults. He's really concerned with those things. He wants us to draw our attention to it. He wants us to seek him and ask him to teach us and to help us and to, like as Dawid has said, he says, well, who can discern, you know, intentional, not unintentional, who can discern intentional? He was concerned with those things. Because there's things about us that you and I are unaware of that we're doing intentionally and don't even know it. So we have to be mindful and we have to be careful. Does anyone have any contributions?
2 questions on a little joyful testimony.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So Deuteronomy 22:14, where he's